Awesome. Well, thanks to Derek. We got the Facebook live stream figured out. So for everyone
I think
watching
it's
on
just
Facebook,
good to go. Yeah.
welcome to Happy Hour. We're just getting rolling here. If you want to actually join the Zoom meeting, we can post the link in the comments. But otherwise, we'll just give everyone a few minutes to get connected here. Hey, Robert, nice to see you this week.
Robert,
I'm going to drop the
you.
quote of 2020. You did.
Yeah, Robert's teasing us. He's there we go.
I was just saying, now that we're Facebook Live, I guess can't say anything anymore.
Yeah. The last, I actually counted how many happy hours we've done, and this is number 28, which is kind of hard to believe. But yeah, the first 27 happy hours, they're totally off the record. Crazy stuff was said, but now, no, you're going to see the whole different happy hour.
Well,
So let me tell you something about WordPress and Android and cPanel and agencies.
Unfiltered. Wow, I feel like I was just doing this with you, Robert, a couple hours ago. What's going on here?
You were in a different room.
I've wanted to jump on that other happy hour with you guys. I just always seem to have something come up right around that time. Just the way it goes. Hey, Mike, how's it going? I'll get in there one day, though. I've catched it on the replay a few times. Excellent. Mike, welcome to the group.
Hey, thanks for having me. How's it going, everybody?
Good, thanks.
Yeah, that's exciting. It's Friday.
I can do a few quick intros here, but love to kind of throw out our icebreaker topic while people are connecting. But I'll say your name. You can just give a quick wave. If I don't know who you are, I won't introduce you. But we've got Robert.
Stop making me laugh.
International Man of Mystery, professional connector. Mike with Atomic Dust, creative director over there. We've got, hi Autumn from RD Nutrition. A few of the reaction crew here today. We got Nadia, Derek, Natalie, Jesse. Nice to see you guys. Hey Chris, how's it going today? Chris with a K, Chris with a C.
I feel like my waves have to be so emphasized because I'm so used to wearing a mask that when I'm like in the grocery store, I'm like super emphasized. Like.
Hey Lisa, nice to meet you. Have you on the call today.
And reaction, Lisa will be joining us approximately around 4:20.
Yes.
Oh, I see. No Canadian jokes there. So I'm curious to ask, I know most of us work in tech or some kind of digital space, but if you didn't work in the space that you were in right now, like what do you think your alternate career would be? And I feel like mine would have probably been radio host. I don't know if that's a realistic one, but I loved doing like amateur radio and podcasting stuff. And I actually was on back when this was a thing, but I was on a pirated FM radio station in Greeley, Colorado when I was like 18 or 19 years old. And this guy.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, this guy, his name was Lumberjack Victim. That was his screen name. And he had like an FM radio tower, and he would broadcast in Colorado. So I had a nightly, once a week show on there. So I feel like if I didn't get into marketing and web, I probably would have wanted to be like a famous radio person that you never saw.
What was your topic? What would you talk about on that radio show?
So I did a call-in music show. So I was actually set up with a 1-800 number that people could call into the show, and we would like talk about stuff, and there'd be topics and stuff. So it was always this mix of, I guess there was always this element of having a talk show. So maybe through Happy Hour, I'm really just living out my dream. That's probably what this is, actually. Yeah. Thanks for making my dreams come true, guys. Robert, what would you do if you weren't involved in WordPress at all?
Oh boy. So it's either philosopher warrior or club dancer. I don't think either of those would pay me much.
I don't know. If you could figure out how to bring those two worlds together, I feel like that's some like really premium internet quality content there.
Either way, I'd probably be locked up in some tower for most of, the workday.
I would get into real estate. Definitely would have been real estate. That's still even thinking about it. That might be my retirement gig on the side to keep me active.
And would it be on the investment side, or do you like showing, like, you think you'd want to show properties and do the sales side?
A little bit of both. A little bit of both, for sure. And the website. I think I'd be in the website. I mean, now I'm pulling the website, of course, but it would be both for sure, especially here in California, where house prices are ridiculous.
Yeah, no kidding. How about you, Mike? What would you do if you weren't creative director of a super successful, nationally recognized design firm?
I'd probably be rich and happy.
Yes,
I have no idea. I don't know, something easy like a murderer or something. I don't know. I'm kidding. These are murder jokes. Yeah. I have no idea. I'm always looking at stuff. I used to, when I was a kid, always wanted to be a cartoonist. Like, that's a lucrative career, right? But I don't know. I've been doing this for so long, I can't remember not doing it. But yeah, pretty boring. I'd probably still do it anyway.
Well, if there's any people going missing in St. Louis, I guess we know where to look first.
There's tons of them. There's tons of them around here.
Jason, I don't actually know what you did or kind of what you did before you were with cPanel doing community stuff, but if you were like not even in the tech or like marketing creative space at all, anything else you would think you would have pursued?
Yeah, well, I've done several things in my life. My first half of my life, I was involved in the music industry. I started by owning a record store, and then went into record pool stuff, then music magazine, and then started an independent record label. And actually, I kind of saw where the future was going, and said, well, let me set up a digital record label. And that's what got me into the web. And I was selling dance music, MP3s, original artists, and whatever for 99 cents, getting half of that. And it was pizza and more pizza. And really, my whole career kind of took off with building websites and learning PHP and getting into that. And then I went on the other side of that by forming an agency, and then did a switch to basically business to business type of stuff by providing Joomla templates and Joomla extensions. And that kind of, got me into the whole open source realm of things. And that's when I kind of started to look into WordPress and things. And that's what got me into events. And now here I am at cPanel doing events. So I've kind of transitioned in some unique ways in my life so far. So if I wasn't doing this and didn't get into the web, I would probably still be pursuing music, and maybe still be broke. But I think I like the money a lot better in the web. And I'm in it because, knock on wood, we're all, everybody that's on this call, I'm sure, we've maybe seen a little fluctuation in our clients and money and stuff during these times of, COVID and things, but it's really, the tech industry is very resilient during these times, so that's one thing
Jason, I think you mean these unprecedented times.
Yes, these
There you go. Anyone else want to throw one out there?
Well, sorry, Mike. I just need to clarify what Jason really would be doing. He and I would be running an Apple II BBS out of our mutually shared basement.
That's true. Robert and I had a great BBS discussion last night, and talking about when we were kids, and what our parents would like drop us off at places to go meet with these other people that had BBSs, and it's disturbing some of the places our parents actually dropped us off. There's some funny stories about that, and we actually made it through all that.
Yeah, I feel like parenting has gotten a little bit more strict in the last few years.
Just a little.
Snapchat's probably really brought this out, I think. How about you, Autumn? If you weren't doing nutrition and helping people with their health, what would you do?
Well, I think I would just do another organizing task and just organize people's lives, maybe. I just organize nutrition, so I don't know. I love what I do, so I couldn't see myself doing anything different.
That's a good answer. Anyone else want to throw anything out there before we jump into search engine optimization?
Sure. Like if something happened to marketing and it was like shunned upon, I would pursue a career in esports. I was just last night, there was a local tournament that was $75,000 prize pool, and just a bunch of people sitting in their basements playing League of Legends. It's crazy.
I think Jesse would be a professional fly fisherman.
Perhaps it doesn't pay the best. So maybe that, but actually, to be honest, I would probably be a private investigator. I've actually been asked so no joke, I have been asked by people, they've shown me a photo of someone holding a fish, and they're like, where is that person fishing based on the background? And I have found the exact GPS coordinates based on a photo. True.
So you'd be a fish finder.
Like, yes.
That's pretty impressive. I feel like the FBI or something could use some of your help right now.
Brandon has tested me. He's shown me photos of a random waterfall, and he's like, find how to get there and where the trail is for this and like what waterfall it is. And my record for that is like 12 minutes on the internet. I'm pretty good.
Amazing.
That's impressive. Awesome. Well, thanks everyone
really
for
scared right now.
Yeah, everybody's background is currently being analyzed by Jessie, so she knows in the next 15 minutes she's going to know exactly where you live. So be careful.
Well, if I wasn't in tech, I would be a doomsday prepper, and I would have OPSEC, so you would never find me or my bunker. So.
Well, technically, you could still do that now. In fact, I think that's maybe not such a bad idea.
I would totally be competing on one of those shows in Alaska, like where they have to build the tent out of pine trees and find the chicken or skin the squirrel or whatever. Yeah.
Have you seen Man vs. Wild?
Yeah, but you know what's better is there's a series called Alone.
Okay.
And they take like 14 people, and who last man standing wins, or last woman standing wins $500,000. And they basically
and the other
just drop
13
them
just
off.
die?
No, they tap out.
Oh.
So they drop them off with a radio to tap out and a backpack, and like that's it. And you just like go and like survive as long as you can.
That sounds pretty intense.
They only get $500,000 for that?
Well, I think that they must get money for like actually appearing on the show. I think the grand prize is $500,000, but I think they get appearance fees and stuff like that too.
Awesome. Alone. I'll have to check that out. I like Survivor, so I feel like this would be like a much more extreme version.
Yeah.
A lot more.
I like Survivor Man. And then there's a really awesome one called Dude, You're Screwed. And it's these three guys, like one's a Green Beret,
like
one's a Navy SEAL, one's like an ex-Marine, and they're best friends and drinking buddies, and they basically kidnap one of them and just drop them somewhere, and they have to find their way out. It's a really awesome show.
I want to go watch TV at Lisa's house on the weekends. I think this.
What's that one you downloaded that I really didn't like? It was like, but they were all naked.
Oh, Naked and Afraid.
Naked and Afraid. Yeah, that's not good.
No.
That's what I thought after 15 minutes.
Yeah, it felt like it had promise, but no.
Yeah.
It's
well,
the
thanks everyone for
draws you in, and then the afraid that you get bored with.
Exactly.
Lisa from Reaction has joined us, Mike.
Oh, hey Lisa, good to see
So
you.
we have 2 Mikes, 2 Chris's, and 2 Lisas.
Won't
Excellent.
get confusing at all.
It's
No, we'll just
almost like that was a popular name or something.
Yeah, we got to work on getting a couple more Roberts in here, I think. Maybe a couple Dereks. There's a Josh that works at Reaction. We could get him in here, no problem. Just really start stacking this up.
Oh, he's working on a late night project for me. Don't interrupt him.
Hey, Josh can't come to happy hour today. Awesome. Well, I really appreciate everybody joining for Reaction's 28th happy hour. Kind of hard to believe how fast these have stacked up. I'm going to call the kickoff of season 2. I don't know if that's a thing, but I said it is, so now it is. And yeah, what we've been doing, if this is your first happy hour, if you're joining us on Facebook, so we are going to be live streaming today because we've gotten actually surprisingly quite a few requests from people who want to be able to take part or watch these conversations without necessarily being called on or taking part. So that's totally cool. We're going to give that a shot starting this week. If you are interested in joining Happy Hour, we'll be sharing the link and stuff. You can throw your email in and get onto Zoom next week. Or maybe even, Derek, you want to post a link to Zoom in the Facebook comments for anyone watching right now who thinks they might want to jump in on the conversation. And kind of the format is every week I send out a question or a topic with a few questions through our email list. And really, we just have a good open discussion around it. And this week, I've invited a couple of individuals. We got Chris and Josh up here in the call. There's some what I'm going to call subject matter experts to help bring some depth and perspective to our conversation on search engine optimization today. And I think we've got two interesting sides of the coin here. We've got Josh, who is the co-founder of the Status Bureau. They're a leading search engine optimization and digital marketing company in Vancouver, Canada, working with all kinds of clients on search engine work. And then we've got Chris, who is the founder and CEO of AndroidHeadlines.com. They're one of the largest Android news websites in the entire world. Chris gets an enormous amount of traffic from search engines, and basically you've built a business off of getting Google to send people over to your website. And that's both the glory and, I'm sure, as we'll all hear, bane of your day-to-day business operations. So yeah, this is just a good open chat, so anyone can feel free to jump in on this topic as we go. And I think a really good way to get us started is kind of a little bit about how much search engine optimization has changed over the years. And I know Chris and Josh have been doing this for a super long time. And I remember when I started getting into web, a lot more seriously, and we were thinking about search engines back in, kind of 2007 and 8. There's a lot of talk about, just the keywords, and meta descriptions were really important. And I remember putting keywords in your metadata, and it felt kind of simple. And there was a lot of ways to game Google of putting white text on a white background, small at the bottom. But then over time, all these things started to not work, and it got more complicated, and Google's algorithm got super complex. And I think that we're looking at search engine optimization today from a whole different perspective of, sure, there's content and keywords, but there's also performance, there's understanding, sort of how Google is attributing all of its equity on different pages. And yeah, I'd kind of love to hear, maybe start off with you, Josh. I mean, what are some of the things that you've seen over your, more than 17-year career doing SEO, and what do you think some of those biggest changes are?
Oh, you got a Guinness? That looks delicious, man.
I know it's a little bit cold in Alberta today, so I'm like, okay, into the winter beers.
Time to warm up. Yeah, all right. Yeah. On the SEO thing, I got to say, I think you're right in that I used to cheat. I used to be able to cheat 2004, 2005. I have websites. I used to be able to go buy a bunch of backlinks, put a bunch of text on a page, jam keywords onto a page, and for my own sites or for my clients, and I would get to number 1, 2, or 3 spot like in a week. It was really ridiculous how easy it was if you wanted to game the system and you had everything set up for you. Now, man, the folks that try to cheat and try to game anything, it's really impossible for them to stay there more on Google for more than a few days. Like they might get a little bit of sunshine by, through PBNs, like private blog networks and stuff like that, but they don't last long. They just have to burn it and build a new one. And so, yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head on the biggest change in SEO is that used to be able to get away with murder by just buying links, keyword stuffing, but that stuff just, it doesn't even, Google doesn't even see it anymore. It's like it's invisible. How about you, Chris? Does that sound about right?
I actually worked doing a little bit of SEO with my cousin's design company back in the day, and you're 100% bang on. You could game it just, links and descriptions and stuff like that. And, there was tons of workarounds to get people ranked, and that Google caught on to that, and, building their algorithm. And you can't game the system anymore. The system is pretty tight and pretty foolproof. Google's paid some pretty intelligent people to build their system, and you got to be pretty smart to be able to game their algorithms, as they're really super complex and basically designed to weed out that type of system now. That gaming, or black hat SEO as they call it, is just something of the past. And if you try it, you're wasting your time and your energy, period.
With that said, I would say a lot still holds. Like, people miss the obvious SEO stuff. Like, we work with a lot of new businesses, a lot of startups, a lot of people have been around, and people miss obvious things. Like, Google's a robot, so they've always tried to match the keyword search, like the user search, with the content on the page. That part has never gone away. That part is still the number one thing that we have to tell people to do. And it's such an obvious thing to say, to look up the keyword volume, see how many people are looking for that, and put those words on the page. That part is missing from everyone's repertoire. For some reason, they just overlook that completely obvious step. And that's where we start with most people, is like the 101 stuff. It's painful how often we do that.
I believe what Josh is saying is that there's a lot of basics in SEO that get you started if your business is on the web and you're out to make money or to move up the rankings so you gain more viewers or customers. You got to start off with the basics, with keywords and great content. If you don't have great content on your website, your website doesn't exist. You could have the cure to cancer on your website, but if you don't have great content, you don't have some really good links from authoritative websites to your website, no one will ever find it. Built the most beautiful house. Mike could build you the best website in the world, but no one will ever find it without the proper SEO foundation. And as you're growing your business, it becomes more and more important each day. You don't realize it until sometimes either it's too late, or you start to realize the benefits of the hard work you've done on it.
Yeah, jump in there, Robert.
Yeah.
So it begs the question for me, as if the baseline is the most important thing, which I actually completely agree with you. I think just natural, useful content is what anyone cares about anyway. So Google wants to be like a person who cares about that content. Why would you hire any SEO experts? Can't a lot of that baseline be automated with proper workflows, tools, plugins, whatever your CMS might be utilizing?
Chris, you want to take that one?
I'll let you start off on it because
no, I get hired to do this. So
yeah,
maybe
exactly.
I'm the best guy to answer
he's
this.
the first guy, and then I'll tell from a user base on why I need a guy like you.
A lot of people blog, right? A lot of companies have blogs. And when we're brought in to do an analysis of opportunity and where you get traffic, most people's blogs have great content on them and they have no traffic through them. Or they have like a 1 out of 50 hit ratio, where they post 50 things and one of them does a lot of traffic. And it's because they're simply not matching it up with the user search query. Google's a blind robot, and it just tries to find search like house for sale Sacramento. They're looking for a page that says house for sale Sacramento. They're not looking for the residences of North like this illustrious language, there needs to be like really basic SEO stuff plugged in. A lot of people miss that part. And then if you have both, if you have all those SEO basics and the great content, then you're golden. And a lot of people, another thing too is to research the keyword search volume. So if you're writing a blog post for, let's say, something that Americans search for 200 times a month, best case scenario, you get 200 people on your site per month. But if you hire a good SEO or you have Ahrefs or something, or SEMrush where you can do your own keyword research, you look for something with 40,000 searches per month and scale your traffic that way. Chris, do you do that SEO research before you write a post?
We do and we don't. I mean, because also as well, Google looks for stuff that's over SEO optimized, because there's just too many people doing, keyword research and thinking that that's going to help them blow it up. And, that's another part of trying to game the system. Google's algorithms, look for natural writing styles that are not keyword emphasized and more authoritative. And that's based on your, history of, your blogging. A couple of posts on your site is not going to get it to blow up. Even, I even question, if you're 50 or 100 is going to get it to blow up. I don't mean to have, scare people off, but you start with your foundation, your tools on your website. You have plugins on WordPress and stuff like that, and you have your good foundation kind of set up, and then there's a lot more complexity after, as I'm sure Josh will agree with me. There's a certain level of where you can get to, and then after that, you need to bring in the people that know what's going on in the industry and the changes. The industry, as we talk about how it's changed and evolved, over the past 10, 20 years, it changes drastically on a yearly basis. Google changes their algorithm, and I mean not that you got to keep up with it, but I think last year they did something close to 3,000 updates of their algorithm. Now that doesn't mean every single algorithm is going to be something that you have to change on your website, but how you go about obtaining readers, viewers, or how you just run the SEO side of your business, it changes and evolves super quick. There are so many different aspects to SEO. It's just like, let's say, web design, coding languages and everything like that. That's why there's experts like Josh out there who specialize in that, because you're great at what you do in your small business, and you probably already wear a lot of hats, but maybe you don't necessarily code your own website. So you go to Mike, he's the professional, right? Well, when it comes to SEO, you can do it yourself, but it does get extremely difficult to keep up with the industry, especially if you want to do high volume traffic or you want to really get great rankings, that you need to bring in a person like Josh or his firm or a well-known SEO, which can be hard to find, good people. Just like any industry, there's good mechanics and bad mechanics out there, but it's very difficult. That's a hat that if you're not ready to get 100% invested in SEO, you should leave it to the professionals. Now, I've worked with from the beginning, SEO professionals kind of just at the start, and we tried to do it all natural. And you know what? It was still early. This was 10 years ago, and we did build up naturally. And I also had some good guidance by some people that were, very knowledgeable, but I didn't totally invest in the SEO industry or having someone work regularly with me or our site. And that became painful later on in life. But at first, it's truly, having an SEO expert or, web design expert, helping you with your website is invaluable, because keeping up with the changes it's a job in its own, obviously. And that's why we have SEO experts. And some people sometimes figure, you know, what are these guys going to do for me? Why do they charge $200 an hour or $100 an hour? You know, but it's just like, you know, building a website. You know, you're not going to do this on your own. And if you do, usually you find out you need help later on.
So I think, Chris, you come from I'll throw it to you, Robert, here. I think, Chris, you come from a unique perspective in that you're doing very competitive SEO. And it's and not to say that all search engine work isn't competitive, but, you know, you're trying to be found for that, you know, new Samsung review or some leaked news about, you know, an Android update or something like that. And you've got other news sites that are competing for that top spot and on Google. So that means that if all of your competition has their SEO A game in check, and they're also working on good keywords and all of that other stuff, that's, I think, where you start to get into, like, what is the edge that your site has if 4 or 5 organizations are all doing the same baseline now? So then is it about how fast the site loads, you know, whether the images are WebP or not? And I think that's where we start to get into that real, you know, nuance of, as Lisa said in chat, all these daily SEO updates. Yeah, Robert, what do you got?
Gotta check my mic's on. So Chris said a couple interesting things, and I ran an agency for 20 years, so I kind of get the aspect of, you know, get someone who knows how to do it rather than, you know, futz around for yourself. But I look at tools like, and Josh already mentioned them, like, you know, SEMrush or, you know, Ahrefs, Moz, you know, Spark Toro that was launched, was it this year, or, you know, by Rand Fishkin? I mean, even Neil Patel's site, they all have tools that are actually really, really good. And, you know, not to pick on Josh, and I'm not at all, but I bet you're using some of those. So
I use all of them, yeah.
Okay, good. So it begs the question, you know, what does an SEO expert that uses tools that I could use? And maybe Chris somehow, you know, partially answered it by, you know, by saying, well, time and expert, you know, just knowing how to use the tools. But I mean, that's a tactical thing. Not, I mean, do you provide, or any SEO expert provide, you know, strategy around those tools rather than just being very tactical and utilizing those tools?
Yeah, you know, the thing about SEO is like I think just to answer the tool thing, you're totally right. If somebody wants to take a crack at SEO and try and do it themselves, I say go for it, because you learn the best by doing it. Just like development. I mean, you can go to web dev. The only way you really, really, really learn how to, like, I can do front end dev and stuff. If you break 500 things, man, you are good, you know, because you learn how to fix 500 things. So that's kind of like, I would say, you know, anyone can buy a hammer, but not everyone can build a house, but you can learn how to build a house over time. So that's you know, my sentiment on that. But the SEO is really chopped up into like 1,000 pieces, because we're an agency and people come to us for 3,000 things a year. Like, sometimes all people need is a technical audit, and they're like, is my site, it doesn't seem to be getting traffic. Oh, your robots.txt file is telling everyone not to come to your website. So people can jump into Ahrefs and like look at search volumes by keyword and write content, but the .txt file is trash, then it does what they do content wise. They could blog all day long and no one's ever going to see their website.
That's a great point, Josh.
I'd like to throw it to Lisa, cPanel Lisa, because you're saying in chat here about how, you know, there's lots of changes, and it's not just even about taking the time to track all of the changes, but you now have to know how that actually works together, and what are the sort of nuance of these changes, and maybe the impact that they would have on other parts of your site.
Right. I think it's not just what do you know and do you have the tool, but how does everything work together? How does the technical work with if you need to do redirects, but is it going to slow down your site? But if it slows down your site, do you still have the useful content? Are you competing against yourself with your different keywords? I mean, it's great to do keyword research, but if you have two articles that are optimized too closely and you're cannibalizing your own traffic, like all those nuances that just come from instinct and experience, you can't do that if you're just part-time using a tool and when you get stuck clicking on the help button.
I agree with Lisa. There's just so many different variables and so many different changes, and keeping up with them and A/B testing, and just learning the latest cutting edge techniques or directions Google's moving in towards, whether it be technically or AI moving in the future, and how their algorithms are working and what they're penalizing for, what they're rewarding. It's a full-time job. I think probably Josh and Lisa would agree with me. You could sit all day and just read about SEO, just read about it, and still have a hard time keeping up with it, because it is and I think everybody in the industry probably can. It is a moving, very fast evolving industry. Google has, the overlord of it, and trying to figure out what they're going to do is not simple, because they do not give away the secret sauce. Otherwise everyone would be number one, and not everybody, and everybody can't be number one, right? But at the end of the day, you're going to try and figure out what you can do and why you can justify your your rate or your company or your success, and you're going to continue to work harder and better at it, just like anybody in any industry. But I think as a business owner, you can't focus on trying to be the best in SEO when you're trying to run your business efficiently. And it gets to a certain point where you need to not rely 100% on Google as well too, and kind of move into social media management, affiliates, all types of different types of marketing as well, just besides SEO, that also impact your website. But it all needs to be done with an approval almost of an SEO, because you can bring different elements into your website that are going to drop your rankings. So an SEO, I mean, I work as a smaller site compared to a lot of other tech news sites. I mean, we're just not Android, we're tech industry. Some guys have teams, and when I mean teams, I mean I'm talking about guys with large budgets and a large group of individuals, almost an agency size worth of people working on their site every day, 40 hours a week, if not longer, to optimize their site to push it to be number one, or to drive in as much traffic as possible. And those guys as well are doing that everyday learning. It's a very competitive field now, the search on Google and MSN and whoever else, Microsoft, Yahoo. So it is an industry in itself that if you don't pay attention to it, you better figure out a really good way to bring in your clients, because otherwise you're going to have a really hard time.
This is kind of a, oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I was also just going to say it probably comes down to like a little bit of time and value as well, because Robert, I 100% agree with you. There are all kinds of tools out there that I could jump into and I could learn, and I could probably do exactly what Josh is doing. However, if Josh can do in a day what might take me 2 weeks, depending on what I'm doing in my day-to-day, like that would probably be the reason that I would hire someone to do SEO versus trying to use the tools on my own. So like, you're absolutely right. If somebody can do the same thing using online tools, I think it really just comes down to whether or not they want to. And maybe it's just easier to hire that out.
It's not too different from someone that has a web design shop. Like anyone can get a Squarespace site. I mean, that's easy, right? But it's sketchy you run a plumbing business, you want to really give that a go, you can. But with that said, different people need different things, and different. Sometimes we do a little bit of research and say there's not enough volume here, or maybe this is something you can do internally. Here's the tools. Maybe that's the best bang for your budget, to just use this tool in this process. We give people that advice all the time, because our best clients are marketing managers, because they don't have time to do it. They're managing everything. So we're sort of built for that, whereas different freelancers are built for different things.
Natalie.
I have a question. It's like the Bureau 1 finger, 2 finger thing. I have a question. How much of SEO is like strategy and research versus like actual development work?
Well, you should do your research no matter what to figure out what your keywords are. So if your keyword is like web design company Red Deer, you might notice the difficulty is very high and not a lot of people are searching for it. So you'll want to say web design company Alberta. So without that research part, that would be like a little bit of research and maybe a lot of development, but it depends on who, what, when, or why. You'd have to give me an example.
Chris from Android is Reaction's client. So he hires all these super experienced, knowledgeable SEO people, and then we just get this huge list of dev stuff that we work on. So it's like, is that list of stuff technically still SEO, even though it's being done by web developers? And it was
well, in fairness, Natalie, there is like a strategy side that obviously we're not tasked with, like
that's provided to us. But like, is what we're doing then also considered SEO, or is just what we're given considered the SEO? I guess that's my question.
If the site speed is broken, or there's orphan pages, or missing redirects, all this kind of stuff, technical SEO is SEO, like keeping development tight, keeping site speeds fast, and making the site good. That's definitely SEO. Site speed has been more and more and more. Lisa just said optimization is optimization. Totally. If you're making the site faster and faster and faster, that's something that we try and tell people to do. We don't know how to do it. We have to ship that off to a dev team. But yeah, that's definitely SEO. Making the site better is.
Mike, were you going to jump in there?
Sorry, go ahead, Mike.
I know I forgot, but in my experience, a lot of SEO, a lot of the development behind it is foundational, especially on new sites. But then, like Lisa said, optimization can just be many things. And just to chime in, I really think like SEO is this lifestyle thing. It's this never-ending cycle of how am I doing, and panic and freaking out and trying things and seeing if it worked. And most people, I mean, some people obsess over their own lawn, right? Like they love to grow grass and keep their lawn perfect. And some people just want somebody to pay them $40 to do it, and it's just, I think it comes down to what you're into. As a business owner and somebody who lives by leads from his website, I obsess over my SEO. I don't sell it as a service to clients, but I do everything I can to stay up on it and to optimize almost every little tiny thing, and I drive everyone crazy trying to do it because I'm almost afraid if I don't, like if I stop putting effort towards it, what would happen to my business? And I feel like that's I don't know, I think that's kind of the way you should either approach it like that or pay someone else to approach it like that. You essentially pay somebody to care about it, and I think that's the thing.
It's kind of a good segue into, one of these other questions, which is like, what is the role of SEO play in the business? So like, if I were to ask you, Mike, how important is your search ranking?
To me, it's huge. I mean, we are, we're sort of a regional market, but we are, one or some weeks 2 or 1 for our real basic keywords of like marketing agency and web design agency and these things that I think are kind of not the most sophisticated keywords, but they like to Josh's point, they bring in traffic. And so it's my job to help convert them. So the thing that I obsess over lately isn't just am I ranking, it's am I ranking and are people clicking on me? So I think just to nerd out for a second, but like Google Search Console is my favorite tool because it'll show your impressions versus your actual click-throughs, and that's the thing you should try to tweak or optimize just to, or that's the thing I tweak and optimize just to trying to gain some kind of increase in percentage. But yeah, as a business owner, I'm completely inbound. So all I have is social media and SEO, and so it's my lifeblood. So I take it really really seriously, but it's also uncontrollable. So it's this thing you just constantly look at, and hope that grass grows.
I like to throw out there that I think all business owners need to take a look at SEO. It's one of those things, should I spend money in it? Am I going to get the results? All this stuff. Any business needs to advertise. SEO is a form of advertising your site on a search engine. How much money you put into that advertising is how much potentially you're going to get in a return. If you're on page 10 or you're on page 1, what's the difference in the amount of business that you're going to get in revenue? Are you willing to spend that money to get to page 1? Or are you fine with page 10 because you do other things in advertising that bring in your business? But that's what it is. And if you rely on the internet to drive your business to your site and make you money, you want to be on page 1. I don't think there's anybody who wouldn't want to be.
Yeah, ROI is always the conversation we have, right? It's like, it doesn't matter what your role is in the business. If you're going to fork out money to a vendor to do stuff, you're going to probably want to know how much money is coming back. So pay-per-click is really popular because people can say, oh, I spend $4 and I get a click. I understand what that is. I get that math. I get it. It's advertising. SEO is more difficult to do the ROI. We can do it now because we've done it for so long, I guess, but that's what everyone asks. What do I get? All right, I'm going to spend $5,000 a month. What do I get? What if I spend $1,000? What do I get? And PPC is immediate and SEO is really long-term. Most people see the return in like 6 or 8 months. And you have to be really patient and vigilant and really obsess about that lawn for a long time. But the difference is it comes back in a big way. Everyone knows how people shop for shoes or shop for anything. You go to Google and you look for it. Man, the ROI and SEO doesn't turn around overnight, but when it really hits, it hits in such a big way that it's scary that people don't do it. When you see a few of those clients, and then when our clients' competitors see that, then they rush to figure out what they have done or haven't done. But sorry, does that make sense?
Totally. I mean, one of the things we always talk to our clients about too, which I think is important to remember when you're thinking about the cost of SEO is to, and comparing that to maybe how much you might spend on social media or email marketing or other forms of advertising, like Chris said, is that you also want to think about the buyer intent at that point of search. And this is something that a lot of our customers hadn't thought about before. But when someone sees you on Facebook, nobody thinks, oh, I really need a pair of shoes, and they go and open up the Facebook app. I mean, maybe if you're going into marketplace, but that's just not the behavior at that point. You're there for escapism and entertainment and something else. And it doesn't mean it's not a viable platform to advertise to someone on, or especially when you're thinking about just brand building and creating exposure through touch points. But when someone needs something, their instinct today is to go to Google. So the purchase intent of someone seeing your ad on Google versus seeing your ad on Facebook is just so much higher. So that's almost why the value of that search eyeball is worth more than the value of a social eyeball. And I'll throw it to Robert.
You're muted, Robert. Robert, you're muted.
How about Robert talks and I'll say what I think he's saying?
I thought Natalie was saying something, and I was like, she must be yelling at Mike, and so I just, assumed. What you guys mentioned KPI. What is a meaningful time period for KPI? Are we talking? Is it a commitment of 3 months, 6 months, 9 months? A year? When
you want to be in business for is the KPI.
Well, and I understand what you're saying, Chris. And, Mr. Chuckles. Well, I know because Jeremy's right. But when should I? Maybe the better question is, when should I expect that I would actually get results back from the effort?
That's a great question. Can I answer this one?
Take it away, Josh.
I answer this one like 40 times a day. It depends on your keyword difficulty. So in Ahrefs, you look at your KD column, and if you're up against an 80 out of 100, maybe 3 years, maybe 4 years, like think about those sorts of timelines. If your keyword difficulty is, if you're already ranking 5th and your keyword difficulty is 2 out of 100, then you can expect a ROI next week. Like there's some real easy levers to pull where you can get that. So sorry about the non-answer, but it's all dependent on that keyword difficulty.
No, that's fair. I mean, because I'm just curious as, okay, if, one hires an SEO expert and just like in web work, so many of these consultative practices, there's so much, wiggle room and relative stuff, but at least that, puts a meaningful, marker in the sand. Like, okay, your keyword difficulty is impossible, so yeah, it's going to take forever. It's not impossible; it'll be much faster. And before Chris jumps in, because I did have a second question, which I blame on Mike, Reaction Mike. You were talking about the e-commerce and shopping, and you're going to go and look for a pair of shoes or some kind of computer mic that works when you click the button, like I try to do. But how does that work if I just go straight to Amazon?
So yeah, you're right on the product side. Sure. I mean, Amazon is essentially like taking you right before you even entered the funnel. They've moved you over to theirs. And I think this applies to professional services too, though, right? Like you need a plumber, you're looking for someone to fix your roof or something like that. And I think this is where it's not a one-dimensional thing either, because you could be the top spot on Google, but then like Mike says, if people don't like what they see or they click your website and then they're not wanting to convert, or perhaps it's actually because they saw you on social media that they feel some sort of trust that when they went to your website now, it doesn't feel like the first time they've come across it. But yeah, you bring up a good point that like something like Amazon just takes Google out of the equation. So if you're specifically in e-commerce today.
But there's ways
Amazon has its own search, its own SEO effort, product optimization, just to get ranked higher on Amazon. I mean, I work with a company that specializes in nothing but ranking Amazon and optimizing product details in Amazon for conversion and for rank. It's crazy.
And it's easier to game, and you can tell by the titles. So if you're trying to buy a iPhone case, you'll see iPhone case, best iPhone case or 6 Plus iPhone case is great iPhone case. And it's just, Amazon hasn't caught on yet. They're getting there. They're pretty good. But if you
they're basically Google circa 2005.
Yes.
Maybe one day they'll start making a little bit of money and they can hire some engineers to work on that, hopefully.
Well, what
fingers crossed.
happens is that, if you're looking for an iPhone case or whatever you're searching for, usually you just don't shop blindly or take a look whatever's best selling on Amazon. Usually you do a little bit of product research. I don't know about you guys, but when I buy any type of tech or when it gets sent to me, I read up on it before, because your money is, it's valuable. You don't want to waste it. So you do that research. So that's your opportunity to get in, right? Especially if you're a local smaller business You know, you can get in easier on the keywords sometimes if it's not over optimized. But let's say, you know, you're a small appliance store that's selling Samsung refrigerators. That's going to be tougher because, you know, there's a lot of people selling Samsung refrigerators, and Samsung has their team of SEOs and so on like that. So going back to what Josh said, some keywords are easier. You know, it depends on the niche, the business you're in. If it's regional, if you're local, it can be a lot easier. Now, if you're trying to do something that's, you know, more nationwide, at one point we were doing 10 million, you know, views a month, you know, we had, you know, we were ranking great for a lot of keywords, but then, you know, we started to having to compete with, you know, teams of SEOs and stuff, and our rankings start to go down afterwards because there's just no way for us to compete at that type of level. So that's where you have to bring in the SEO people in it, and it is really important, you know, and especially for, I think, local smaller businesses. You know, if you're a website and a designer in Red Deer and you're just looking for regional SEO, you can probably not have to invest a whole lot of money as someone who's looking, you know, to get national traffic, right, or international traffic, or has a lot of competitors in that field, you know. And I think you can find a lot of success without having to invest too much, you know, with SEO, and just, you know, doing some smart optimizations on your own. But at the same time, having an SEO, I think, consultant help you along the way, whether it's on a yearly basis or on a monthly retainer, is really huge, because you can run into a lot of pitfalls. At our business, as I said, when we were running 10 million impressions, you know, or views a month, you know, everyone in my family is like, oh, you're doing wonderful, you're great, you're going on, you know, you're awesome. And I said, you know, one day I'm hot, the next day I'm not. Google would change something in their algorithm, and you're no longer at the top. They just kicked out the floor from underneath you, and then you go to your SEO and say, what happened? And we've ran into that more times than I can count, and it's frustrating because it is the algorithms evolve and they change, and that's why keeping up with it is important. And if you value your business, or, you know, online business, then you have to be on top of it. It's part of advertising. It's part of keeping, you know, your business visible to your customers and clients you want to target. So.
The one thing that you said, Chris, was like a small business, you selling fridges in a small town. That's the biggest factor in SEO. The number one biggest factor is user location, where the person is. So a lot of people don't know that. A lot of people think when they Google something in Portland, Maine, it's the same results as in Portland, Oregon. But if you look for a dry cleaner or restaurant, they're not, right? It's always localized. So that's the number one factor in the ability to rank higher, is where your business is in proximity to that user. So there's a tool called Local Falcon that has a map of, so if your keyword was refrigerator, I don't know, Samsung refrigerator, if it has a Google map in the background, and then a ranking of where the user would be and where your website would show up. It's absolutely a killer tool that no one knows about. And especially for local businesses, if you're doing any marketing or you have a local business, definitely check that out, because you might be shocked that you're Googling from your own office of your own business, and you're always in the top 3 for marketing company or web design company or something. And then 4 blocks away, you actually drop off the first page. Is really, really common.
Yeah. I got one more quick question. Sorry to interrupt, Mike, and anyone else or everyone else. When looking for an SEO expert, does it matter if they focus on a specific vertical? Like, do I want SEO company that works in hosting versus fashion versus legal, financial? I mean, is there some kind of, back to Mike's earliest question, subject matter experts is there a value to having someone who is an SME in one of those things plus SEO?
I think the fit should be maybe in vertical, like that's a really good signal to say, oh, they've done the same thing for a similar company, and here's the pitfalls, and here's what we've learned. But the other thing is need. So if you have a ton of content and your website is technically perfect, and what you need is a ton of links to your website, not to your homepage, but a ton of links to interior pages of your website, that's hard to do. You have to find someone that's good at that. So if an SEO company pitches you and you're like, we've done the same thing for other companies, but they've done something that you don't need, I don't know if that's a fit.
I can chime in a little bit, Robert. We've worked with a few SEOs over time, and luckily I've, some pretty good authoritative ones. And, we've gone from anywhere from what we call forensic audits of our website, forensic technical audits, where you've had an SEO and he's been working with you, and he's kind of ran the gamut of what he can do. And then there's people that can get in more technically into, the code, or potentially the design, or, the nuts and bolts of your website. And then there's other guys, as Josh said, that are, link specialists. Currently right now I'm working with, an SEO specialist who's worked in the field of, news websites of my size or larger. I don't know if you guys have heard of Vice and stuff like that, and just kind of bigger publications where they have a little bit of experience of what's going to move the needle on a larger scale. For some guys, let's say for a smaller business, if I drive 20,000 new customers to your website, that's amazing, But for me, my business model is different. It's a numbers game, because we're an ad revenue driven business. So 20,000 people, I could write one piece of content that goes viral and do that for breakfast, right? Where, what moves the needle for me is bringing me 200,000 or 2 million people. So it really depends on your need and the expertise as well too. You definitely have to, find out what kind of experience that these SEOs have. They're not all created equally, just like, website designers or any field, mechanics, everybody. There's some people that have experience in a Ford, but not in a Ferrari, so you definitely need to vet them, and they all have their own specialties too, and some are easier to work with than others, and finding a good fit. And it's just like, and anything you do, you just don't knock on the first door, and you really need to find someone who has experience in what your objectives are and can work with your budget.
Yeah,
Chris, I think you guys first.
I was just agreeing, and I got to run. It's my witching hour. I'm an hour ahead. I have dinner and family stuff. Have
nice
a great
to see
weekend,
you, Robert.
Thanks
have a great
so
weekend.
Much for a brilliant conversation. Appreciate Josh and Chris taking their time to go through sort of the vendor-client side of the universe and that. Thank you, Mike and Reaction, for hosting this.
Cool.
Have a great
Thanks,
weekend.
Robert. Have a good weekend. Yeah, totally. I'll throw it to you, Lisa.
I was going to say, I think the only time that you really want to look for a niche specific or a vertical specific is if you are in a specialty industry. So if you're in a highly regulated industry, say mortgage lending or refinancing, or maybe alcohol, or you're in Colorado and you have a 420 store, then that experience is invaluable, because that can be very tricky, especially if you're navigating international as well as national. But otherwise, I mean, if somebody can optimize a site for a plumber, they can optimize a site for an electrician.
Those, yeah, strategic principles and research are you're saying going across industry verticals.
I think
yeah, and in general, it translates. Yeah, and size.
Size does matter. Trust me. I mean, just to play the bad side as well too of the evil Google part, because technically they run the internet as far as I'm concerned. If you want to be found, you have to play the Google's game. And if you don't play by Google's game, then you're going to pay. And we had an update that came out, and one of their algorithm updates, that core update that came out, and we dropped 70% traffic to our website. And we had, our usual SEO, ran through all of his checks and balances and tools and everything he could do, and he couldn't pinpoint it no matter what. And that's when we had to bring in specialists, with core updates and stuff like that to figure out, what were we doing that pissed off Google enough that, they were going to cut technically 70% of our revenue off, for any business.
Penalty recovery is
and there's penalty recoveries, and there's these medic updates where they're changing all types of different things that they're looking for. Even just it's simple of you put a link on your website, and if Google doesn't like the way that you've linked to it or finds in context, they think that it's an unnatural linking process, they can penalize you and slow the traffic down to your website just from one link, and it not be properly coded in to your content. And that is why there are SEOs, because I would never know that myself. I mean, I understand about spammy content and stuff like that, but an unnatural linking, to most people wouldn't know what a no follow or a sponsored, markup is. And just one thing like that can get you a manual penalty, slow down the traffic to your site till it's fixed properly. And there may be other links like that in your site too as well. This is where, small technical things, they can put you out of business technically overnight if you're not careful. I mean, that may sound very draconian, but they don't care. Google doesn't care about you. They care about the quality of their search engine and the rules that they've set, and you must follow them. And they don't quite explain all of these rules to you. While there is documentation on their websites and stuff like that, a lot of the stuff that Josh has learned over the years is through trial and error, and his team, following the industry and learning, from other industry experts on what's the proper way to do it. Because Google does not have a manual. There's a basic way to do things, a great foundation, but if you want to be successful, there's a lot of stuff that is, only known by industry experts, SEOs.
Yeah, that's well said, Chris. Well, just in kind of respecting everyone's time here, if there's any final questions, comments, thoughts anyone wanted to share, throw it out to Josh or Chris.
If anyone has any questions, I don't have any questions.
Yeah, I mean, I think we covered a lot of ground here, and I mean, I think if we were writing the show notes today, I think we'd be talking about how you got to have that foundation set. There's an enormous, value that needs to be put on keyword research, and the amount of the competitiveness of those keywords you're going after is really going to dictate the level of effort that you need to put towards it. And at the end of the day, I mean, you either need to dedicate, just like anything, you're either going to dedicate the time to understanding and working on this stuff, or you need to be partnering and bringing on someone that can do it for you. And I think I also, made note that search engine optimization at the end of the day is a form of advertising, and you shouldn't really think of it. Maybe it could be elevated to a level of higher importance than other forms of marketing. But at the same time, if you get traffic from Google and that's where you get some of your business from, then you shouldn't ignore that, because you can't take for granted that that's where your traffic is coming from. And if you're not in Google Search Console, you definitely should, because I agree, there's tons and tons of valuable content in there, and it doesn't cost you any money to have access to that.
It's criminally underused, Search Console.
There you go. Awesome. Well, I really appreciate everybody jumping onto this happy hour today. Hopefully you guys had a great week behind you and a good weekend ahead of you. Josh, if people want to get a hold of you or check you out online, what's the best way for them to do that?
Google me.
Glad you said that.
Yeah, I've never Googled Josh SEO before, but I hope I come up. Status. I work at the Status Bureau in Vancouver, so that's my gig. And yeah, it was really nice chatting.
Excellent. And Chris,
A tree?
I know people can get a hold of you, AndroidHeadlines.com. Anything else?
He's
you
grounded
wanna
from
wrap us
trees.
up with?
But
You know,
if his sister
we're
wants
just
to give
not
him
Android.
one, I will.
We're tech news as well too. So you know, if there's anything you're looking to buy in the kind of the tech space, or you want to know a little bit more about how to's this or what kind of apps and stuff, do all kinds of the fun things over there. So feel free to check us out.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for taking the time out of your Friday afternoons to share your experiences and expertise with all of us. That was great to have you a part of the conversation. And yeah, we'll be here next week, 4 p.m. Mountain Time. Happy to have you guys back and chat about the next topic, which we'll email you about and tell you what it is. I just forget right now, so I think it might be web hosting.
Web hosting.
There we go. Awesome. All right. Have a great week, everyone. Enjoy our weekend, everyone. And we'll catch you next time.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
Bye.
Mike.
Bye.
Bye,
Thanks,
everyone.
Josh. Thanks, Chris.
Bye.
Bye.